Back in 2023, Peter Scholtz released a game called Entity, a solo sci-fi RPG that I purchased when it was released and I enjoyed playing, and I completely forgot to put on my channel. I'll have to rectify that later. However, news came that in 2024 he was going to release a cyberpunk covert-ops espionage game, kind of like a board game or sort of mini skirmish. Now, this interested me because I had a number of years ago backed a Kickstarter from, I think it was Megacon Games, Mercs Recon. And this game was amazing, in my humble opinion. It was a big, again, sci-fi co-op sort of game, covert ops, intelligence gathering, assassination, kidnapping, all that sort of stuff. But it was big. It was, I would say, fairly complex in terms of the rules. The rules weren't that brilliantly written, to be honest, but I loved the game. So, Peter Scholtz brings us an easier way to play that kind of game. Cyberpunk covert ops espionage called KUROI. And that is what we are going to be looking at in today's video. KUROI! Right, let's take a look at the game KUROI. When you purchase, I think at the moment it's only digital from drive-thru. I'll put a link in the description below. But when you purchase this from drive-thru, you get 4 files. You get 2 versions of the rulebook, one which is single pages and the second which is spread format. The single page rulebook is about 25 pages. The spread rulebook is 13 pages. Now, I printed this out as soon as it was released, and there was only the spread version available at that time. The single page version was added, I think, later on. As well as the 2 versions of the rulebook, you will also get 2 other files. One will be the character sheet, and secondly will be a sample sort of action grid or game grid, a 6x6 grid where the game is played, and also a number of tokens to represent you and also the enemies if you want to use those. I have constructed my own play set of the things, including walls, and I will be using miniatures, but this is here in case you don't have those, or maybe you want to construct some kind of travel version of the game. Very, very useful. Another thing, as you'll see as we play the game, I'm not actually going to go through the rules of the book. I'm just going to play the game and explain things as we're going through. But the character sheet's actually quite funny. It's actually a quick reference sheet with the character bit in the top left corner. Because that's your character up here. Name, details, and then your skills and skill points. That's it. It's a very simple game in terms of character creation and character details. Then you have your actions, like a reference for your different actions that you can take. And then over here, you've got your equipment and cyberware, again, as a reference. In the center, you have your alertness track, which is going to determine how much noise you make or how aware the sort of security is going to be in terms of your presence. And you've also got a hit point tracker down the bottom here as well. So this is very much a quick reference sheet with the character sheet embedded in it. Now, as I mentioned just now, I'm not going to go through the book because the game is very simple. The mechanics are very interesting, the way that things work. In terms of the production of the book, the sort of individual page layout, let me rotate it so you can see. The graphics, the text, the font, it's all very, very nice. The layout of individual pages, again, is very nice, easy to read. However, the organization of the pages or the information, it takes a little bit of getting used to it. It's not it doesn't kind of follow the sort of organization of pages or the sequence of sections that we normally find. For example, like character creation is near the back here. Also, I think the designer, Peter Scholtz, I don't think English is his first language. So there are sort of spelling mistakes, there are grammatical mistakes in here, but again, it's fine. Sometimes it gets a little bit confusing, but again, by watching videos like from myself, I'm pretty sure that the Lone Adventurer will do one, possibly Solitary RPG, Dungeon Dive possibly as well. By watching these videos, hopefully it will clear up any questions or queries, because there are a few things that may be not so clear in here. But again, it's fine. We can work with that. So without further ado, let us start the game. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to create our character. Now, what I'm going to do is I have taken one of the character sheets. Dum-dum, and I've cut one up. Because what I've done is I've actually done this so that I can put these either side of the 6x6 grid as we're playing the game, just to kind of make it better for the camera when we're playing. But yes, here we have the equipment and also the hit point tracker. So what we'll do is we're going to be using little cubes to keep track of everything. So I'm going to put a cube here on my maximum hit points. So we're currently at 10 hit points. And then on this one, we've got our alertness tracker. So again, I'm going to use the same color for alertness. So at the moment we are fine. Security is unalerted. They don't know I'm here. But this is going to be moved down the track to sort of keep track of what's going on. Over here we've got name, details, and then we've got our skill points and skills. Now the game is actually very simple in terms of your character details. And the mechanics around using the 5 dice, yes, this game uses 5d6, is very much like Yahtzee. You're going to roll the dice and you have the option to re-roll up to 2 times, just like the Yahtzee game. Now, some of the actions that we are going to use require multiples of the same number. So for example, if we roll the dice, let's say that this was my result after 2 re-rolls. I've got a pair and I've got 3 singles. The pair can be used for certain actions to give me better results. Having 3 of a kind would give me a better result. Having 4 of a kind, even better sometimes. Having 5 of a kind, you can get very nice results. Like immediately knocking out an enemy or moving anywhere on the grid kind of thing. However, there are some times where it's not about how many dice you have of the same, but more in terms of the value of the dice. And these are called unique actions. Because sometimes you're going to need to have a certain value of dice. For example, if you want to hide a body that you've already knocked out or defeated, you need a dice with a 4+ in order to sort of lose the body so it can't be seen. Again, we'll be explaining all these things as we play through the game. Okay, another thing is that the sort of game itself consists of 2 stages. The first stage is what's called the preparation stage, and you're going to be doing 3 narrative missions, which is going to have a positive or negative effect on the heist itself. And the heist is the second mission, where you actually use that grid to move around and try to avoid or kill the security and grab the intel. Because this game, it's all about finding the intel, finding intelligence from various data points. 12 intel, you win. Again, I'll explain all this sort of stuff as we're playing the game. Once we get to an intel point or an intelligence data core, I'll explain how all that works as we're playing. Now, I might actually change the background because this kind of blends in. So I might get rid of the backing board here when we actually play. We'll see. Right, now for character creation, it's very, very simple. You have 4 skill types: savvy, combat, stealth, and tech. You have to assign one of 4 numbers to each of those skills: 5, 4, 3, and 2. So we can do that. Where do I want to put my 5? I think I'm going to put my 5 in tech. I'm going to put my 4 in stealth, I think 3 in combat and 2 in savvy. Now, these skill values are going to be used during that first part of the game, during the preparation as you're doing these 3 narrative missions. Under each of the skill, you then have these boxes for skill points. And these are going to be used during the second part of the game, the heist itself, when you're on the grid. And these can be used to re-roll dice in certain situations. Let me just find my reference. Where is it? Okay, so savvy skill points can be used to re-roll any or all dice in tactical rolls. Combat in attack rolls. Stealth in defense rolls. And tech in enemy action rolls. And what you'll do, for each point of your skill, you will get a skill point, and you'll start the game with maximum points. Now, during the game, you'll be then using these points to re-roll dice as you need to. You can, what's the best word? Refresh, get back the points by using the focus action. It costs 1 dice of any number, and you can gain 1 skill point back in one of your skills. Now, again, I'm going to be using these little cubes. I've put a tiny little bit of blue tack on the back just to kind of keep it in place. So savvy, we're going to have 2 skill points. So I'll put 2 cubes here. Okay, they're a little bit bigger than the squares, never mind. Combat, we've got 3, so I'll put 3 cubes here. Again, they're not stuck onto the card very strong, but it's enough to stop them from moving around. So we've got 3 there. Stealth, we have 4. And again, it's important to remember that each of these types of skill points can only be used for certain types of rerolls. You can't use them to reroll every kind of dice. Only in certain situations. And then for tech, we've got 5. Now, when you're allocating the numbers to your skills, and I've got to be honest, it doesn't really matter when you're doing the preparation stage, when you're actually using your skills themselves, because the skills that you're going to be testing when you do these sort of 3 missions is going to be completely random. So you've got to be lucky. But what it is important for is for these skill points in terms of looking at what they can be used for and sort of thinking, well, how are you going to approach the mission? Are you going to go sort of combat orientated? Are you going to go into each of these heists trying to take out the security? In which case you might want to put a higher value in your combat skill, so you'll get more skill points for that heist. And that is your character creation done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly put a name and some details, and we're then going to actually start our heist. Well, we're actually going to do the preparation first. I'll be back in a second. Right, we're now going to do the preparation stage, and again I'll be explaining how the game works and how it plays as we're actually going through the mission. Don't want to spend too much time actually going through the rulebook itself, but just one thing before we start. I was planning to use one of the Merc Recon figures. I actually used this one previously in the 5 Parsecs game, but I've decided not to use this one because the base is a bit too big for the grid. It's on one of these like lipped bases. So I'm going to need to use something with a 25mm base for the grid. So I'm going to be using... It's a space game, it's a cyberpunk game. Why can't we have aliens, right? So I'm going to be using one of my little... What are these called? I can't remember what they're called, but it's the Mantic sort of Ratmen, space Ratmen, Scaven things. I'll put what they are when I do the editing. But I've decided to use one of these to represent my character, and this is Bartholomew. He's a low-life runner, gambler, and smells bad. So that's going to kind of represent part of the awareness rolls and the awareness boosts that we're going to get, right? So that's going to be my character there, Bartholomew. So for the game, like I mentioned just now, there are 2 stages to the game. You've got the heist and then you've got the preparation. You can do the heist first where you generate the basic details. We can do that, that's not a problem. Let's just move Bartholomew out of the way for the moment. Now, the heist, you're going to get certain pieces of information. Again, it can have certain effects in terms of your game, in terms of what happens as you're playing. And then the preparation will do the missions. So let's start off now. For the heist, you're going to be rolling 4 dice. Now, actually, in my case, I'm going to be rolling 3 dice. Why? I'll tell you in a second. Because actually going to be rolling 2 dice. For the first few missions, the designer, Peter Scholtz, recommends that you use the first corporation, which is Omnisense. Because it's the one that has the easiest enemies, and it's a good way to learn the rules. So we don't need to roll for this one this time, but in future heists, in future games, you can roll a d6 to find out what's the corporation that you're going to be infiltrating and stealing from. But in our case, it's going to be Omnisense, so I'm going to write that down here. Omnisense. And each of these corporations are going to have some kind of effect in terms of the game you're going to play. For Omnisense, it says that enemies are always soldiers. For the other corporations, you'll be rolling for a random type of enemy or a random type of like security guard. And some of them are nuts. Some of them are terrible, terrifying. But yeah, and again, it will have here some kind of modifier for the creatures that you find. So after the first few missions, when you use Omnisense, after that, there really is going to be a lot of variety in terms of what you meet, but also in terms of their exact statistics and stats. Now, this is also something that I think the game could evolve with in terms of the types of enemies that you face, but also in terms of the effects. Maybe there could be a new corporation where you have leaders. So maybe the basic troops have their basic stats, but maybe one of them, you assign one of the enemies as being a leader, and maybe they have increased stats. For example, once that's done, we then look at the objective. We roll for d6 to find the objective. Now, this is purely narrative. You can basically come up with a story in terms of why you're doing this and what you're trying to find. And then the third roll is normally your client. Who's paying you for this job? And again, the type of client will give you some kind of ongoing effect to the game. So Omnisense, the effect is the enemies are always soldiers. So soldiers only. The objective we can roll. So we get, let's roll it here, a 2. Sabotage and disruption. Now it says here some examples. Prototype destruction, power outage, or manufacturing chaos. Power outage sounds good. So I think what we're going to be doing is maybe not necessarily collecting intel, even though in terms of the game, to win the game, you've got to collect 12 intel, but maybe I'm actually shutting down power in various parts of the building. And maybe I've got to do that 12 times or get 12 results. Okay, so the next thing we do is our client. Who are we doing the job for? We get a 6. Neo-Luddites, anti-tech zealots. Yeah, so shutting down the power does actually work with that narratively. So we're working for Neo-Luddites. And what effect does that give me? Enemy special abilities are ignored. Well, with soldiers, they've got none. Other enemies do have special abilities, other things that they can do, but since we're playing soldiers, they don't have any special abilities, so that's actually pretty useless for me. Never mind. Okay, so we're going to be up against soldiers. Now, soldiers have +0 armor. Armor basically makes your attacks harder to hit with. And again, if you look here, the mecha enforcers got +3 to their armor. That's bad. Then you've got hit points, how much damage they can take. Ranged attack value, how many dice they're going to be rolling for a ranged attack. Melee attack, how many dice they're rolling for a melee attack. Their weapon and the chance of doing damage. Their melee weapon and the chance of doing damage. Ranged and melee. Right, now, once you've done that, you also start with 5 bonus credits. So we start the game with 5 credits. And this can be used to purchase, don't get the other part of my account sheet. This can be used to actually buy equipment for your heist. Now, one interesting thing about this game is that, it's on here. Any weapons and gear that you take onto a heist, you lose at the end of the heist. Cyberware you keep, and it's very expensive to buy. You can't get any to begin with. Now, when you complete the mission, or when you complete the heist, you will get credits equal to double the amount of intel you gather. So you've got to get 12 to complete the game. But if you want to continue and risk it to gain more intel and potentially more money, I think you can. I think it's an option. Any gear or weapons you use during that heist gets destroyed. The only thing you can take with you between heists are those hard-earned credits and cyberware. Now, another thing is that you can earn credits from the preparation stage as you're doing these missions. Depending on how well you do, you may actually get more credits anyway. So what I'm going to do, before I spend my credits on maybe getting some better guns or weapons, what I'm going to do is actually do the preparation stage first, those 3 narrative missions before we actually enter the building. Because that could potentially earn me more money, which means I can get better guns. Gonna need bigger guns. So, preparation. 3 narrative missions where you're going to be using your skills. Yes, the numbers here. Now, each of the missions, I don't know whether, is that in focus if it bends up like that? I might have to hold it down. Each of these missions has got a different skill check in order to pass or fail. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using your character's skill values to try and overcome these missions. And they are random. That's why for the first part of the game during preparation, those sort of skills, it's all real random. It doesn't really, you can't really plan ahead. So every mission has some kind of goal and then possibly some kind of reward or complication depending on how you do. Now, the way that this works is you have to roll a number of dice equal to your skill. And what you're looking for are high numbers, because if you roll a 6 amongst those dice, you get a full success, you gain 3 credits and a reward. Now, the rewards are fixed to the missions. So if you do mission number 2, you will get the reward for number 2. If you roll a 5 as your highest number, you succeed, but you get a complication. So you don't get any credits, but you do get the reward. If your highest die is a 4 or lower, it's a failure, you don't get any rewards or credits, but there will be some kind of complication which will have an effect on the game. So let's do our first mission. I'm going to need my skills and details there. So the first mission, we're going to roll 2d6. We get a 4. Steal a prototype gear from the contraband smugglers, and this is a tech skill check. So I'm going to be needing to roll against my tech. My tech is my best one. I've got 5. So this is stealing a gear. So steal prototype gear. It's a tech skill. Now I have a 5 in tech, so I'm going to be rolling 5 dice. And I need to succeed at least a 5. I want 6s because 6s give me credits as well as the rewards. So we're rolling for our first mission. Oh, that's really nice. We got a 6. So the highest is a 6, so we get 3 credits and a reward. So I've now got 3 credits, and the reward for mission 4, gain either an experimental gun or an optical camouflage. Ooh, let's have a look. Experimental gun, AR. So AR is the number of dice you're rolling. 6 ranged. Enemy gets -2 armor, usage of 3. Okay, so this can only be used 3 times before it's out of power. Suffer 1 wound when used on CR. Now CR is close range. If the range is 2 or less squares, if it's more than 4 squares, it counts as long range. Now, different weapons are going to give you different effects in terms of close and long range. Obviously melee doesn't consider any of those. Melee is you've got to be adjacent. So if I use this experimental gun within 2 squares, I suffer a wound. So this is going to be really good at long range, but not good at close range. Now, everyone starts off with a sidearm, which has no modifiers, but you're only rolling 2 dice. Or the other one was optical camouflage. You can use a sneak attack and sneak kill, unique action, twice per turn. Oh, that could be useful. That could really be useful, because normally you can only use 1 action once per turn. So I could sneak twice and do 2 sneak attacks. Ooh, sneak attack I think is the silent KO. It's not technically sneak kill. I think it's actually the silent KO skill. That could actually be very useful. But I want the gun. See, the thing is, when you use ranged weapons, unless it's a bow, the awareness or alertness automatically goes up to 4. Another thing is, when you go from level to level, when you do different levels, the alertness resets. I think I'm going to go for the optical camouflage. So we've got our sidearm, and I'm also going to give myself optical camouflage. But again, at the end of this heist, we're going to lose it. But that's still quite nice, and we get optical camo. Piece of gear. Very nice. Right, second mission for the preparation is... we get 7. Stole weapons from a cargo ship at the port. Steal weapons. Steal weapons from a cargo ship. This is another tech. That's really good. I've been really lucky. So now we've got to steal weapons. But like I mentioned earlier, in terms of which missions you get and which skills you've got to test in preparation, there's nothing you can plan. Really, you should be doing these based on what you plan to do during the other part, the heist. Right, so we've got to try and steal weapons, and again, it's a tech. So again, we're rolling 5 dice. We got another 6. Ha 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 ha! So we get another. So it's another tech skill. We get another 3 credits, and what reward do we get? This was mission stealing from the port, which is number 7. Gain weapons with a total cost of 4 or less. Okay, so you're going to get a free weapon. Or multiple. I don't think I'm going to get multiple because you can't get... I mean, I could get another sidearm, I suppose. 4 or less. So I can get an assault rifle, where I roll 3 dice instead of 2. I could get a shotgun, 3 dice, plus 2 at close range, -1 at long range. That's pretty good. I could get a hand cannon, 2 dice, but plus 2 at close range, -1 at long range. I mean, why would I take that over a shotgun? Oh, it's 1 cheaper. Okay. I could get an SMG, 3 dice, plus 1. I think the SMG, probably the best. Yeah, I'm gonna get myself an SMG. Now, another thing is that the way that this has been designed is you don't have to write down all the equipment you're carrying. You just have to tick the little check boxes here. Also, in general, you can't have more than 1 of each kind, but where you could potentially have more, it actually has more than 1 slot or more than 1 checkpoint. So, for example, you can have up to 2 stim packs by ticking off both of those, for example. Right. So we get credits, and I'm giving myself an SMG. Nice. Now the third mission couldn't be tech again, could it? So the third mission, in terms of preparing for our heist, preparing for our big mission, we get 11. 11, observe security at the target area. So we're going to be scoping out the building, and it is stealth. Okay, let me write that down. Okay, now, I've actually been very lucky with this. So stealth is my second highest skill. I've been very lucky with the preparation. So for stealth, for this mission, observing security, I'm rolling 4 dice. Again, I need a 5 or a 6 to succeed. Okay, this time our highest is a 5, so we do succeed, but we don't get the credits, we just get the reward. So mission 11. Mission 11 was the reward. You can choose the order of levels in a heist, including the starting level. Okay. Do I want to do that? Because when you're doing a heist, it's going to comprise of a number of levels, like levels or floors of the building. You start off with the lobby, and then once you collect the intel or you get to the exit, you then roll for a random next level. It could be an office, a parking garage, it could be a cafeteria. Each level will have at least one intel port or one intel sort of console. There is a potential to get another, but I've got to be honest, for this mission, for this game, I don't think I'm going to bother setting down the number of levels. I can see how that could be useful in other missions, in other heists, where you're up against different enemies and you're doing different things. You see, the game doesn't actually tell you in terms of how many levels there are. You just do as many as you need to before you get the 12 intel points. But I mean, you could do that to make the game easier or harder, I suppose. But I don't think I'm going to bother. So I could choose number of levels, but I don't think I'm going to for this game. I'm going to leave it as it is. So I've got an extra 6 credits, so I've actually now got 11 credits that I can spend. Now, I could not spend anything. I could keep that credits for the next heist. But do I want to buy anything? Because again, once I buy it for a heist, I lose it at the end of the heist. So the SMG I'm going to lose at the end of this heist. I've got to try and find another weapon for the next heist. I mean, I always have the sidearm. You always have a sidearm. The optical camouflage again is only going to be used in this heist. Stim packs could be useful. Unique action of 3+. So to use a stim pack, when you roll the dice, you've got to have at least a 3+ to use, and you use that dice to activate the stim pack to heal 1 wound, usage of 2. So you can use it 2 times before it's gone. I think those could be quite useful. I can't afford any of the cyberware yet. I need to do more than one heist for that. Kevlar armor is 6. I think I'll get the Kevlar armor. That will take me down to 5 credits. I think I'll keep the 5 credits for the next mission. One thing is there's nowhere on the character sheet to actually mark down the number of credits you have. So maybe that is something that could be added. I'll just put it here. 5, I'll just put credits there. Okay. Now that is the preparation phase done, and we are now ready for the second part of the game, which is the actual heist itself, which involves the grid, the miniatures, the map, and everything else. And for the first level in any heist, you always start off with the lobby, with this layout. The black represents walls. C represents partial cover. It gives reductions when you're trying to shoot through it. So it's good to hide behind. You can move through it, but you can't stop on it. The red eye here represents intel points. E is entrance, X is exit, and these yellow blocks represent the starting positions of the enemies, and the arrows represent their facing, where they're looking, because that is important in the game to have the right facing. Now, when you construct your level layout, your grid layout, you can also roll for feature objects. You roll 2 dice. If either of them is a 5 or 6, then you have a special object and you roll here to find out what it is. There could be another piece of partial cover, another piece of full cover, so maybe the wall is a bit bigger, or maybe the wall goes somewhere else. A healing station, another exit, another intel, or another random enemy. Yes, you can get another enemy, so you start with 4 instead of 3. But it doesn't say... I mean, I'm assuming it also applies to the lobby. I mean, it doesn't say that you don't do it for the lobby, so... All right, we'll do that now. So you roll 2 dice. If either of them is a 5 or 6, we have a special object. We don't. So there's no extra exits or intel or enemies. It's literally as the map gives us. And we're going to be starting in the lobby. Anything affecting us in this game? Nothing is here. Again, sometimes you'll get things that tell you that you lose or you gain certain skill points, or the enemies are better or worse. You know, there's a lot of different things that can actually happen in the game. So, I will end this video here, and I think the actual heist itself will take part in the second video. In this video, I've basically introduced the game. I mentioned Mercs Recon, which is a much bigger, more complex version of this. This is very much a simpler game. We've created our character and we've done the preparation for the heist, for the mission, and in the next video we will do the heist itself. So, KUROI, I think that's how you pronounce it. Link will be in the description where you can get this game. Don't forget to leave a like and a subscribe. Add some comments. Have you tried this game yet? Have you tried the other game? Was it called Entity? I will see you in the next video, part 2, where we do the heist. Until then, take care, stay safe. Cheers.